Meet Arjun. He didn't come to Nepal to summit Everest. He came to experience the grandeur and mystique of the greatest mountain in the world. For years, he saved just to stand at base camp and look up. After 8 days on the trail, Arjun did just that. He made it to base camp and stood in awe, looking up at Mount Everest. He lived the moment that he'd dreamed of for years. And then on the way back, everything changed. He stopped at a lunch suggested by his guide at a tea house, ate hungrily, anticipating looking at his photographs, and then an hour after lunch, his stomach turned violently. He became dizzy, disoriented, and his guide suggested to him, "Hey, listen, I can get you a helicopter flight straight back to Kathmandu. You'll be there in about 45 minutes. It won't cost you a thing." Sounded pretty good to Arjun, so he accepted, and less than an hour later, he was back in Kathmandu. Sounds like a typical story. A trekker or a climber goes to altitude, gets sick, and has to be evacuated back to safety for some hospital or medical care. But years later, Nepal's own government would document allegations that in some cases, trekkers were deliberately made sick to trigger emergency evacuations. And recently, 6 people high up in the trekking industry were arrested by the government of Nepal for a widespread insurance scam that has been going back more than a decade. I've said it here before, Everest is the greatest mountain in the world, but there are some who are not out for people's best interests that are working there. It's just a few, it's a minority. But even I didn't quite understand the extent of what was going on. I had heard stories about trekkers and climbers being evacuated via helicopter for ridiculously minor symptoms, told that they needed to be rescued or they would die. But I never had anybody step forward. It was just hearsay from people in the know who were not willing to go on record. And then an article in the Kathmandu Post recently reported on the arrests made by Nepal's Central Investigation Bureau, the CIB, specialized unit of the Nepal police that handles financial fraud, organized crime, corruption cases, and high-profile national investigations. These insurance frauds weren't just a couple of isolated incidents. It amounted to almost $20 million in coordinated fraud, a network working to try to bilk the system of money. According to police filings and reporting by the Kathmandu Post, investigators uncovered a system of staged and exaggerated helicopter rescues, many of them allegedly unnecessary. But what shocked investigators wasn't just the money, it was how those rescues were triggered. I spoke to Kathmandu Post reporter Sangham Prasai, who's been working on this story essentially for about 15 years. And he told me that the pattern was unmistakable.
Actually, the people who used to come to Nepal, they were not aware of this scam, right? After 8-9 days, they reach base camp, right? And when they started returning, the scam starts from there. On the return, they return after observing all the beauty, right? All trekking, they enjoy everything, right? And when they return, they are tired. Obviously, they are tired because it's 7 days, 8 days long journey. For slow walkers, right? It's 15 days, 20 days, right? And for expedition company, it's 45 days, 60 days. And when they return, it's difficult for them because they are already tired, right? It only happened when they return, right?
Yes, gotcha.
And they have a guide.
Yeah.
And they have a guide, and a guide can read their face, right?
Yeah.
And he started convincing them that it's too long way to reach to Lukla, get flight and reach Kathmandu. So instead of that, we can reach in 45 minutes, right? Maximum 50 minutes. So I have an idea. You just need to pretend to become sick, right? That's all the case. And they reach to Lukla by helicopter. From Lukla, they fly to Kathmandu. They go to hospital, right? And hospital makes a bill, right? And they are simply not aware. So the underwriter comes and endorse the bill. So this way they starts to claim from the insurance.
The detail does matter. This wasn't about stealing people's dreams. These people got to go to Everest, in some cases, climbers on the mountain itself, but it was people on their way out who were convinced that they absolutely needed to be rescued. You know, stories like this leave me feeling just a little bit hollow. It isn't really the most upbeat story about the mountaineering business and those who are supposed to be rescuing people who are truly in need of being saved. And so I guess I've learned, and when I get that feeling of hollowness, it's all about taking care of the basics, making sure that at least you're staying true to your core values and needs day to day, like your health, your energy, and your clarity. And so if I could just pause for a moment and tell you about one of the ways that I take care of my core basics, I know it'll be worth your time. AG1 has made a real difference in my core daily diet, and I think I've shared with you that I'm a vegetarian, and I'm focused on taking care of my brain, my gut, and my immune system, and my diet is crucial. AG1 has vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and a lot more, with no GMOs, no added sugars, no animal byproducts. AG1 mixes into water or oat milk or coconut water, and it tastes awesome. The good people at AG1 carefully source the ingredients for easier absorption into the body, for potency, and for nutrient density. A single 8 to 12 ounce AG1 gives me all the vitamins, probiotics, and whole food sourced ingredients that I need, whether I'm at home or away on an expedition. AG1 also has more vitamins and minerals than ever before, and it's clinically shown to fill common nutrient gaps, and the pre and probiotics help support gut health and digestion. AG1 now comes in original flavor, citrus, berry, and tropical. And now AG1 wants to give a gift to viewers of this channel for first-time buyers. Head to the link in the description below, and through my link, you'll get 3 free AG1 travel packs and 3 free AGZ travel packs, plus free vitamin D3 plus K2, and an AG1 welcome kit with your first AG1 subscription order. Be sure to subscribe in the link in the description below. Now let's get back to that crazy look at what investigators uncovered with this insurance scam.
The report produced in 2018 has clearly mentioned that there were some instances, right? And one instances was that the hotel people used to mix baking soda on their food, right? On trekkers' food. As a result, they used to get sick, and immediately they used to call a helicopter. And in other cases, a trekker used to work with guide, right? And the guide used to convince that if you act to be ill, then we can call a helicopter. So that will make your problem. You can directly go to Kathmandu. That would not cost you a penny. So the guide initially used to convince that because the guide used to get some cut.
So to understand why this story seems to be surfacing right now, you have to go back a little bit in time. You have to look at what took place in Nepal in September of 2025. What the world might often categorize as a riot actually was more like a reckoning, Nepal's Gen Z, students, young workers, first-time voters, they poured into the streets, and what began as anger over government bans on social media quickly turned into something larger. It was a rejection by the Gen Z of a system that they believed that was run on nepotism and favoritism, kickbacks and unaccountable power. Government vehicles were burned, tax offices were set on fire, there were clashes with police that turned deadly, and dozens of young people lost their lives. The message was unmistakable, that the public's tolerance for corruption had dissolved entirely. And in the months that followed, cases such as this one began to move again, and here we are with these 6 arrests. According to this 2018 government fact-finding report, it was never fully released to the public. Investigators documented multiple methods used to trigger these evacuations. One involved persuasion. Guides would convince trekkers to, if they just faked it, if they just held their gut and pretended that they were sick, they'd be in Kathmandu in a matter of hours, sometimes faster. Trekking back out from the mountain for people who aren't used to it is not the easiest thing in the world. It's a very difficult and arduous journey, and getting back out when people are tired and just want to rest and get down to sea level for the warm and rich air, the idea of jumping on a helicopter for free and giving them the opportunity to alleviate them of their discomfort is pretty tempting, and it sure worked. And as Sangham Prasai has said, and I'll cut to his interviews here, the guides would receive a commission, the charter company would reclassify the flight, the insurance claim would follow, and the report would document something even darker.
This scam start from a guide, right? The guide calls the trekking company, right? And the trekking company calls the chartered company, and the chartered company calls the helicopter company, right? And the helicopter finally goes to the destination to pick them. So these are the nexus, right? Guide, trekking company, and then chartered company, and then helicopter company. In some cases, hotels, guide, trekking companies, chartered companies, helicopter company, and in last, the hospital, right? The hospital are the big cheater here. In one case, they produced a bill of, I think it's $30,000 for one night stay.
And so once the helicopter lifts off, the financial machinery begins. Investigators documented flights carrying multiple tourists at once, but when the invoices were submitted, passengers were said to have been on separate rescues, separate flights, separate insurance claims. And in one documented case, there were 4 tourists, 1 helicopter, and 1 flight, but insurers in this instance were billed as if 4 rescues had occurred, totaling over $31,000 plus nearly $12,000 in hospital charges. So many of those hospital admissions lasted less than an hour. Some tourists would just merely sign the paperwork and walk straight out of the hospital. And believe it or not, the police described it not as a chaotic mumbo-jumbo of a claim here or a claim there. They described it as a factory line. They do name names in these articles and reports. Mountain Rescue Service Private Limited allegedly claimed $10 million with 171 rescues flagged as fake. And Nepal Charter Service allegedly submitted 75 fake rescues, totaling $8 million. Everest Experience and Assistance was linked to 71 suspicious cases. These weren't mistakes, they were patterns. So what happens now if there have been some significant arrests, but others got by scot-free and the investigation supposedly ends? This whole scheme will not only not go away, but it will flourish. Sangham says that this investigation is ongoing, and my gut tells me that sometime down the road we're going to see a whole nother wave of arrests.
We received the report, we wrote the story, we made a large story, right? But the government didn't make public the report, right? Because there were many people, many powerful people involved in this scam, right? And after 7 years, we suddenly again wrote the story. And when I went to the ministry yesterday to get the report is not there, right? so I'm still finding the report, right? It's already been 7 years, and most of the officials have been changed, right? So that's the case.
So 6 arrests, files have been reopened, a system finally under scrutiny. It is tainting the Everest industry. As you know, I love it deeply. It's one of the most important mountains in the world, and where there are people going to enjoy themselves, and in such large numbers as in Nepal, there will be a couple of bad eggs who are going to try and exploit it. Everest deserves better, and so do you. So do the trekkers, climbers, and tourists who are going to Everest to fulfill a lifelong dream. What do you think about this? I'd love to see your comments in the section below. And if you're still here and haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, I'd hope that you'll do that. And I'd love it if you checked out the members section, where there is a ton of exclusive content, a lot of videos and live streams for members only, or you can go and find the free exclusive content on patreon.com/Everest Mystery. And also check out the merch section, tons of really cool glassware, as well as apparel like hoodies and hats. We'll be adding some things this spring or summer. And most importantly, be kind to your neighbor and do a good deed. Don't ask for anything in return, and make the world a better place, one tiny step at a time. Peace be with you.